Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you're listening to UFO Paranormal Radio Network, otherwise known as United Public Radio Network, or we just like to call it UPRN. And you're listening live to the Angel Rock, and I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. I am a host of this show, and I'm also a host of a second show. We're coming up to our 1-year anniversary, actually, right after New Year's, which is called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed, with my amazing friend, who Angel Channel, Medium. He's got a big channel on TikTok. It's David Hansel. And so I hope you'll join us for that. That's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A little bit about myself if you've never been here before. I am a Canadian spiritual psychic medium. I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, budding animal communicator. I'll tell you a little bit about that. And I'm also an RN. And we're glad you're joining us. We have our regulars usually that pop in. And if you want to be part of the chat, we would love to have you. So as I understand it, 80% of our listening audience around the world is listeners. So if you want to join in some of the conversation, please head over to UFO Paranormal Radio and United Public Radio Network on Facebook. It's all together. It's a big, long title. And YouTube. I am also streaming on my YouTube channel. We're streaming on LinkedIn tonight because Facebook doesn't like me for some reason. They love to go after me for music. So once I get a wonderful guest talking, I'm going to sneak in and stream it over from our main page on Facebook so you can still watch it. We're streaming on Canada's Most Haunted. I'm trying to think where else. I think we're on UFO Undercover. We're all over the place. You can find us. Even my own YouTube channel under the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. So join in. We'd love to have you be part of the conversation. Now, if you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe. This network's been around for over 25 years. We stream multiple shows daily, 7 days a week. And when we're not streaming live, the archive server randomly picks shows over the last 25 years. And we've had some really great hosts, and we still do have great hosts. We've got some new shows. So there's something for everyone. So make sure you tell everybody that you love and care about, because they're going to have a lot of fun over here. Also, what else do I want to? Oh, I don't want to forget this. So you guys, we've been talking about this on here. You guys know I love one of our hosts. Well, I love all our hosts, but Carrie Lynn Shellhorn on Fridays, Spirit Switchboard. She's got the 12 days of giving. Today is the day. You need to go to her psychic medium, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, on Facebook. You have to put your name in there if you want to be in part of this giveaway, and I'll bet you do. Because myself and David Hansel, my co-host on Thursday nights, are joining Carrie Lynn on Friday, I'm trying to remember, December 22nd, and a lucky winner is going to get chosen to join us for 2 hours on that show. And it's going to be lots of fun. So you want to join in on that. Don't enter on my page, please, because I've got it shared in a few places, because Carrie Lynn's taking all the names that enter off of her business page. Again, it's Psychic Medium Carrie Lynn Shellhorn. And you could be one of the lucky winners. Now, the only thing is you have to be available because it is a live show, but we're going to have lots of fun. So I've got another great guest for you guys, and I'm dressed for Christmas. I almost said Halloween. You know how much I love Halloween, but I'm ready for Christmas here. I'm even doing, hang on, I had to grab a quick drink of my energy drink. Hello, Julie Jean Bassett. Were your ears ringing? Because I was just talking about that I'm a slightly budding animal communicator. I'm going to highlight Julie because she was the one that ran that fantastic beginner animal communication course this week. And you guys, take a look out for her. She's been a guest and she's a friend of this show on the Angel Rock. She has helped me very much personally. She has also just got her shamanic practitioner. She finished it. It was a long course. You guys, you need to look her up. She is incredible. It will be life-changing for you. I guarantee you. So great you're here. We got Love Is here. And she says, yes, you are an animal communicator. You did amazing. Oh, you're so awesome. She's the most lovely lady, honestly. No, I'm keeping my poor guest waiting here. So he's okay. You guys are going to love him. So his name is Mike Fiorito. He's an independent freelance journalist. I hope I got this right because I went through your page and different things. So it says associate editor for Mad Swirl magazine and an author of multiple books. Tonight, We're chatting about Mike's latest release, Mescalito Riding His White Horse, a book inspired by bluegrass musician Peter Rowan, his musical and spiritual journeys, including chatting, I believe, a little bit about Buddhism, a little bit about spirituality. Mike told me before we start he's going to read some passages. We're going to talk about the really beautiful cover on the book and about some of his upcoming books, because I know he's got one that fits right in with the genre of this network that is supposedly releasing, I think, in 2024, right, Mike?
April 24, correct.
I thought so.
Yeah.
So, welcome, Mike. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate. We've been talking about this for a while, so it's happening. Here it is.
You know why it took so long? Well, besides the
I do.
reasons, you
Yeah.
know why though? What happened was we have a cottage out, and it's about 20 minutes away from the city. I live in a city called Thunder Bay. It's right smack dab in the middle of Canada. People always ask me where it is. It's on the shores of Lake Superior. It's about 40 minutes away from the Minnesota border, and I'm about
Hmm.
6.5 hours north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. People come back and forth through here. Anyways, our cottage does not have internet, and the summers are shorter here. So if we could go out and stay out for a long weekend, I didn't want to book a guest and then have to get a hold of them and say, "Hey, I'm staying out at camp." So now that I'm booking, I'm almost booked straight through to April. Like,
Amazing.
and it'll
Yeah.
be beyond
Oh.
that. Yeah. And I like doing shows on my own. I enjoy them. So
Yeah.
we had a nice little bit like that. And we had a few guests sprinkled in because the waiting list is long, because Gavin, your wonderful publisher and good friend, he's amazing. Gavin Davies, he keeps me busy, always sends me the best authors. So thank you for being so patient.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let
Gavin's a wonderful guy too. I really
oh my, I've had
you
him as
can't
a
help
guest
but
here.
love him. You
I've had
can't
him
help
as
but love him. Oh yeah. Huh.
Oh, sorry, I have a bit of a delay. I forgot to tell you that. So you guys know that if you've been here, but I forgot to tell Mike. So I would never purposely speak over you. So if I do, I
Okay.
apologize.
That's okay.
No, Gavin is amazing. And he stayed up with the time difference, because my show used to be a lot later on Mondays. Like, I think it started at 11 p.m. And so I think it was like 3 in
It's
the
the
morning
morning.
we came
Yeah.
on. Mhm. But we had fun. So I wanted to talk to you about this. I did a little research on you. I found out you play music.
Hmm.
So have you been playing, and you sing? You sing beautifully.
Thank
So
you.
tell me about this. Like, how'd you get into music and writing?
Sure.
And
Sure. I think like I've always been creative. I've always been interested um, in writing, and I've been writing maybe badly at first.
I
Um,
don't think so.
well, as a kid though, there are things that uh, are helpful. I would say going to graduate school was important. At the
Right.
same time, for writing, actually for English literature, but at the same time, you have to let go of it. So when you're a kid, you have this incredible fecundity. Your imagination is so rich,
And you're
and you
free.
do it, and you're free.
Mhm.
Um, I would say that a little bit of shaping helped. So that's what I meant by that. Um, we started playing like a lot of kids. I'm 57 years old. At the
We're the
time,
same age almost.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Listening to rock music, and that drew me in, and the iconography and the imagery of rock music.
Mhm.
And my best friend Lan, he's still my best friend. We're still in touch
Oh, that's beautiful.
all the time. He lives in Florida
Mhm.
now, and we started. The first thing we did, if you could believe, I did an Elvis Presley impersonation.
I
So
think
that
I
was
knew Elvis from the womb. My mother just is still the biggest Elvis fan.
Yeah, I mean,
Elvis.
and I used to have a big glass image of Elvis in my house, in my
Wow.
bedroom. Yeah, yeah, that's how big it was. But when we practiced, I hadn't yet played an instrument, so Lan played the drums, and I just kind of, did well, it's one for the money, two for the show,
I'm
and
impressed.
it was so cool. Thank you. And I
Mhm.
remember it was funny because I had to be I don't know, 12 or 11. My mom actually, she worked in the jewelry business.
Mhm.
So she got me a bunch of like chains, kind of
Oh,
Elvis chains and
wow.
stuff. And
Mhm,
they got me a shirt that kind of buttoned down. So
mhm,
here's the funny thing, Laura, when I turned around, here I am in the school stadium, whatever,
mhm.
stage. Lan goes, da da. I turn around, the microphone isn't on. Right. So there's
Oh,
this like
no.
sudden silence.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure my parents, they needed life support at that moment.
Mhm.
And then all I did is I turned around, I clicked it on, I looked at Lan, he went again, da-da, one for the money, two for the show. And that kind of launched, but we practiced that. We would come home and he would play literally on his, he didn't have drums. He played
Oh,
on
he
a,
didn't have drums.
not
Okay.
at the time. He played on a, I think he got drums for the performance. He played on a banana seat, a bicycle banana
Oh,
seat.
okay.
Isn't that
You'd
funny?
have to be our age to know what that is,
It,
probably.
I guess,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, have you seen one? I haven't seen a banana
No.
seat. I had one as a kid. They're
Yeah,
long, long bicycle seats, and they
yeah,
had that
yeah.
metal piece at the back sometimes.
Exactly, exactly. And
Mhm,
it was really fun, but we practiced that one song over and over, over and over again. And then I said, I probably should learn how to play guitar. So I
mhm,
started learning how to play. I really just picked up guitar and started playing.
mhm,
And then I started to take lessons because there's some fundamental things that are helpful to know. And we formed a band. Our band was called Gemini because we're both Geminis. And we were real improvisers,
mhm.
and we just would get up there and uh, jam Led Zeppelin songs, Jimi Hendrix. So that kind of launched my interest, I think, in music. I think I've
Mhm.
always had an ear for music, to play and to listen as well. So not just the playing part. Some people are deep listeners, and that's no judgment on how anybody takes in music. But I can just sit and listen just to music. My wife and I will often sit on a Friday night, or really any night,
Mhm.
and we'll just listen to music and
We
just,
did that at my house.
yeah, just listening.
My
So
partner's a Gemini, and when I was talking to you, I won't say too much, but I'll tell you what we were talking about certain people with paranormal and music backgrounds. I thought, oh my gosh, I live with one.
yeah,
Didn't even think of that. And he did almost
interesting.
what you're explaining. He had two brothers, and one played the drums, and my partner plays piano and guitar, almost the same age, and
Wow.
his brother plays many instruments, and they started a band, like, sort of sounds similar at the same age, not quite the same, but similar.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to hear the music.
Mhm,
But I think there is a connection between uh, creativity and I think the receptivity to the paranormal. It doesn't always work that way because sometimes people have zero interest and they suddenly find themselves with incredible uh, uh, ability, for
well, you
telepathic
know
or,
what I do? I was going to throw in here.
yeah.
One of the things, because I do mentor and teach people as well, is I have a video on my YouTube channel because I have some teaching videos under the video link tab. And one of them is, I think it's why the power of, I forget the name, it's something about the power of the lyrics and the music, why it's so important. And I get into that. But mainly what I do with people when I'm teaching them to, if you will, quiet their mind and start to listen to this inner guidance that we all have, and intuition, is to listen to music and pick out one instrument and listen to all different kinds and
Mm,
just focus on that one instrument, and then pick another one, because it
mm,
teaches you to tune out the other noise that goes even on in our brain, and how to
right.
really listen. Mhm.
It's very true. We do a lot of that, and I like different kinds of music.
Mhm.
Classical, Bach.
Yeah.
I love Palestrina. Masses.
Mhm.
It's like being in an ocean of voices, and you're kind of engulfed and swept
Mhm.
away. And so, it's music has always been the foundation. I found myself writing about music and becoming a music journalist, not
Mhm.
just music, but I do a lot of music journalism. Um,
Cool.
I I was writing for newspapers and journals and magazines. I mean, I've done food reviews, which I didn't think I.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because it's an interesting thing, and I think all of these creative endeavors, they can catalyze journeys. They become they themselves become the passport. I think my writing is a passport to I'm here, meeting people. You're going
Mhm.
backstage, meeting different kinds of people, um, and what I was asked to do uh, go to a restaurant and just go do a review for the newspaper. And I
Mhm.
said, I really don't know much about food. And the guy said, just go and talk about the neighborhood. Just tell a story.
Mhm.
Okay, that I can do. You know what's funny, Laura? I wound up writing, I probably about 12 pieces on food,
Mhm.
and they became a part of a book that got published. So,
What was the name of
for me,
that book?
pardon?
What was
Oh,
the name?
that was called Sleeping with Fishes. So
Oh,
that was,
wow. What a cool name.
yeah, it's a bit of tongue in cheek. So
Mhm.
it comes from The Godfather, and so it's
Absolutely.
a bit of an exploration of my Italian American heritage and playing with stereotype, but I go into Neapolitan music, which is very key to my interests. I've done a lot of research and listening in that, but also talking about food. Talking about things that are very specifically kind of Italian American,
Mhm.
um, that my mom would make, for example,
Right.
certain kinds of foods and things. But my point is that just from the invitation, and some of us you say, oh gosh, I can't do that. I'm not sure. But you go and you do it, and then you find yourself aloft on a journey. And so, again, I would never consider myself like a food expert, but to anyone out there, if the door opens, just go through it and then figure it out afterwards. Um,
But it kind of, if you think about it though, right? And it doesn't matter. And I always say, because people wouldn't consider it even healing, but it is, whether it's food in many cultures, especially I was a community visiting nurse before I hurt my back. And I set up a college course and I was teaching fellow nurses how to work within the community because you work on your own and culture is so important. And especially in numerous cultures, and I'm not Italian, a lot of people think I am, but I grew up, all of our friends and family friends were Italian. So I was very immersed in the culture. And I would consider in the Italian culture, food is love, right?
mm-hmm,
And
very much
it
so.
also is an art form. It's very healing. Food can be, it's nourishing. I mean, it's fuel for our bodies, but also music, right? And it's
Hmm.
all to do with our senses. And people don't really put a lot of thought into that, right?
Yeah, it
Mhm.
definitely, and I think what's very key about these, most uh, 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 Italians from that live in Canada and that live in the United States, they came from the South because they were fleeing.
Oh, we have some
Uh,
northerns. I knew a lot of northern people up here too, from North
they
Italy as well.
you get a little smattering, but the large majority, because they were kind of fleeing poverty essentially.
Absolutely.
They were fleeing oppression, because
Mhm.
even in Italy, the South was oppressed, and so a lot of the food is very simple, and
Mhm.
that's part of the charm and the is whatever you have, you make something. And we would have, I remember growing up, my mom would make linguine with clam sauce from a can, Progresso, Il Progresso, and till today when I eat that, now you have to add some things to it
Mhm.
from a can. It is just mind blowing. So it's that the idea of the simple, the basic. You open the cabinet, whatever you have, you make it, and it
I think
becomes
that's the sign of a great cook, though,
yeah,
that
mhm,
regardless of what you have and you make it taste homemade and it's unique and it's delicious.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And there's an interesting story that it relates, I think, to our topic, and we will get to, in depth.
I have so many questions. I knew
Oh,
I would. So, and I love talking. You know what I love about this, and I tell people, like, don't get me wrong, we connected via email, but I don't meet most of my guests until 5 minutes before they come on, and I like it that way because it's like I want to know your story. I want to know, how
yeah,
did you get here? Why did you write this book?
yeah,
So one thing I did want to ask you, and I don't mean to stop you if you wanted to add something
please.
still to the food, is
It's okay.
so we're going to talk a little bit about the paranormal, but I wanted to know, did you have any paranormal experiences? I know that's not quite what the book is about, but
I would say that I categorize. I do have, and what I was going to mention here is precognition. Um,
that's the
uh,
paranormal, anything that's
yeah.
not
Oh
within
yeah.
the norm. You know what I always say though?
Psychedelic,
People,
experiences. What I've been hearing the term, the phenomena, and I use that in one of our email exchanges. So, by location, a psychedelic experience,
Mhm.
dreams. So I have those experiences richly in my life, and they're really a source. My dreams are a
Mhm.
source of my writing, and
Cool.
I do keep a dream journal, but I do a lot. I
I
have a lot of
love that. Most
I have a
people
lot of
don't.
UFO dreams, and I consider those contact
Yeah.
because they're so real, they're so intense and powerful, and the images, they're evocative, and there's communication. So there's something there. I had a dream, maybe about while I was writing the book that is coming out in 24 April 24, that I saw uh, this it was this elongated kind of galaxy, like a cigar shaped galaxy
Mhm.
looking thing coming at me, right? But what was coming at me was these kind of halogen lamp type of discs. So
Mhm.
these discs that looked like halogen lamps, lights, and they were sort of shooting off this cigar shaped thing that was coming toward me. And it was followed, those halogen disc like things were followed by other objects that were connected. One of them was a pine tree, which is
Interesting.
interesting. And then
Yeah.
there were other kind of, technologies and things. And when I said to my wife, look, this is a UFO. See, this is a
Mhm.
UFO. And then, in my mind, in the dream, what I realized is the UFO was enabling me to see what it thought I wanted to see.
Oh,
So there
oh.
was something where it was presenting to me because it was in my mind, reaching into my mind telepathically,
Mhm.
and presenting in a way that I guess was palpable for me. Um, but I use those dream images in
Mhm.
my book, that's coming out. Um, and even, in Mescalito, I'll tell more about that. But I did want to make one point, the Neapolitan stories.
Okay.
So there's a bit of time travel involved in it.
Oh, I love talking about that
It
too.
it just it just had this incredible, my father passed away in 1991, let's say. So it's a long time ago.
It's still
And
sorry.
oh, thank you. Thank you. And at some point, maybe 10 years after he passed away, I started to, you need time to heal, to kind of separate. And I started to read things I thought he would like to read. So I started to read these books on which I'd never read when I was younger. I was not interested in Neapolitan music. I didn't like the music they listened to. Now I love it. Um, but I started to read a, a book on Neapolitan music, and I
Mhm.
became so interested. I wrote to the author, and then he and I started to correspond. In the meantime, I'd been writing stories, but they weren't fully formed yet.
Mhm.
This author kind of became a bit of a mentor to me. And he was
Oh.
like, send me your stories, send me.
Mhm.
So I sent him, and he gave me some great advice. And there wasn't like red marks, red lines.
Mhm.
It was kind of just you know how some people you can connect on creative
Yeah.
things and they can provide that little bit of glue or whatever it is that you need. Um, and anyway, I wound up writing a series of stories and I wound up writing a book as a result of it. But it kind of felt like, my father had kind of written to me from beyond,
Oh, how
had
beautiful is
sort of it basically saying, because your dad, I'm a dad, I have two sons.
that? Mhm.
You'll do anything, for the ones you love, and maybe animals or you children. You'll do
Well,
any or
I
friends.
have 2 boys
You have
myself,
two boys.
and I
You,
was always told I'd never have children, so the fact and I you get it as a parent, and I never mean to be disrespectful to anybody that
right,
maybe isn't a human parent, but is a pet parent or what, but there's just you'd give your life in a heartbeat, right? Like, in a heartbeat for those boys or girls.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I do think, my dad was a gambler and it kind of put us in a rough situation. We were kind of plopped into, not the greatest. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in a little bit rough section.
Can I
And
share something with you? I'm sorry, I've never done
please,
this on this show. Your
please.
dad just came through and said, "I'm so sorry for that."
Well,
I don't normally do this on my show, but he's got a very strong
mm.
personality, and he's here,
Well,
and he
that's
just
good.
oh, I'm so sorry, and he said Michael. I don't know if he called you Michael, but I just
He
heard that.
did.
Okay,
Sometimes when he was mad at me.
he's not mad at you. He's serious. I have goosebumps too, and it's not
Oh,
cold in
that's
here. It's
sweet.
my
That's
sign.
sweet.
He also
That's
wants
sweet.
to
And
let you know I never do this during a show, but he's
no,
asked me,
please.
and he's so sweet, and he says to let you know how much he loves you and how
Uh,
incredibly proud he is of you.
oh,
I
that's
didn't
very
mean to
sweet.
stop your story, but he really
Uh,
does have strong energy.
well, please, please vocalize those as they
Okay.
come, because that was the kind of voice that was calling to me. And I think it was sort of when you come from a certain kind of neighborhood, a certain place, your parents like, go to school, become an accountant, make sure you do this kind of thing. And I think the writing, I know that um, he was creative. My dad was an artist, so he and he was without training. And I think there was something that he had unfinished business, is my point. And he sent me a note into the future from the past to say, go do this.
Yeah.
We missed this because I was involved and, I was distracted, but
Mhm.
here I am now. And I truly believe that. And it was
Oh, 100%.
emotional. It was
Mhm.
so emotional for me. I would write those stories, and sometimes I would write them and begin to tear because I wanted to connect emotionally. It wasn't just facts and just that kind of thing. It was a resurrection, a reincorporation, and a bit of healing for both of
That's
us.
what he show I never do this during a show.
Mhm.
I swear to God, you could watch my shows. I don't do this, but your dad just keeps showing me how even if there felt like there was a bit of disconnect, right? And I don't know if it was the music or what, but he's showing me like you two meshed together over this work. And the
Mm,
other part is that the reason why he's so proud, he says, because of the dad you are. And he's
mm,
almost like he's not saying it, but he's showing me back in that time when you were little, he wasn't able to express. It wasn't what a man would do back in those days to be the type of
mm.
dad that you are today. Hmm.
Well, that's nice to hear. I mean, I remember, as whereas my mom, super affectionate,
Yeah.
Sicilians, my gosh, everyone's sitting on everyone's lap
Yeah.
all the time, and he was a little bit more reserved. He was Neapolitan,
Hmm.
but not that there's so much more reserved, but he was. But when
Hmm.
he would drape his arm around me, he was a tall guy. He was,
Hmm.
a little bit shy over 6 feet,
Hmm.
and it was always felt so great to be cloaked in his kind of presence. Let's put it
Yes.
that way. Um, so thank you for that. And as he reappears, I'm sure at some point. I also know that my dad. I was always into the wild and into the super imaginative, and maybe he couldn't always go there with me, but also he did invite me there, as
I
well.
believe Yeah, because time,
Yeah,
okay, what I talk about with time, I'm getting super excited. Sorry, but I am. Because when
please.
you said that he wrote you a letter from the past and projected it into the future, on the other side, whatever people want to call it,
Hmm.
heaven, the universe, whatever, there is no time. And it's the present, past, and future all happening at the same time. So I was hearing a huge yes, yes, and you get this, you got it from
Yeah.
him. Mhm.
And it's really throughout, even in my current work, there's the work that hasn't yet come out. Um, there are sections with him in it because there's some, there's some, there's a spirit. And they're your parents that they stay with you all your life.
Of course, you're part of
As
them.
exactly. And I feel very thankful. I mean, there were things I said that I revealed that he probably would kill me for saying, but at the same time, there are things I think that it was a cleansing for both of us.
You know what the beauty in it is when we go back home, and I truly believe this. I've studied near death experiences professionally and personally for over 40 years. Plus, I had one as a toddler. And the beauty in it is we play a role when we come down here, right? We're an everlasting soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And we're just here having a human experience. So you experienced your dad in this lifetime in his human role, but that's not who he is as a soul, right?
True.
So he would never ever, and I know what you meant, but he'd probably kill me
Yeah.
for what I said. But no, that's why he doesn't have a problem with it, and he's so proud
Yeah.
because you're fulfilling why you came here, one of your reasons, and he's just beaming, just beaming.
Yeah.
Really proud
And
of
I
you.
like that you pointed that out. I like that you pointed that out because at at that point, everything is revealed anyway, right? And
Mhm.
whether or not you consciously and you're a part of the collective, uh, and yeah, I do think it's just that kind of that the personal aspect of it. Um,
The human part.
right,
We call it
exactly,
that,
the
yeah.
human
Mhm.
part. But what a gift, what a gift to bring to me in the way he has, and that has launched. Um, all of the projects that I've done, the
He said,
writing
"Don't
that
sell
I've done.
yourself so short, Michael."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you this. He keeps saying Michael. I have not called you Michael once, like in our messages back and forth. So I'm sorry if I have, because he said, and he's not being serious. He just maybe so he knows you he means it. And I
yeah.
don't use my hands like this either. And I almost feel when you were sharing this, like you're channeling your dad, like he's
Mm,
almost like he's in that spiritual ear as you were,
yeah,
and again, goosebumps. So it must
yeah.
something's coming from him.
Yeah, I feel it too. I now and as you're saying it, I really do feel it. And they always, they would always say my family, that we were similar because we were both my two sisters and brother, they aren't
Mhm,
everyone is creative. Everyone is creative,
mhm,
but they're not creative in the way that we are, my
mhm,
dad and I, which to be visual artists.
mhm.
He had other skills. I mean, he could do things like when I was a kid in school, there was a, a project to do some sculpting of something. This is a man that never sculpted anything. And we brought home, I think it was clay or something, and he sculpted something beautifully. And I brought it into school as if I sculpted it, and they were they were like, "Yeah, okay,
I don't think so.
right, right."
Yeah.
Yeah, a real creative artist, and I still have his works till this day. I actually did a show of his work. It was my work and his work. A friend of mine who's an artist has a studio, and in his studio we did a show of it. There were other people involved as well, generational connection of art. So a friend of mine showed her uncle's work. I showed my dad's work
What a
and my
way to
work.
honor him. And he said thank you. He was there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're welcome, Dad. And I digitized all his work, and I've made copies of everything, and I've framed some of his work and given them uh, to my family. So
What a
my
tribute
brother,
to him, Mike.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know he appreciated. They were lying in a closet that my mom had, and I said, "You're just leaving. Can I have these?" So I
Mm-hmm.
gobbled them up, and I did everything with them, digitized them, framed them professionally, so they will live on.
They were
You know.
honored the way they were meant to. Not that your mom dishonored them, but I almost feel like you recognize the importance and the beauty in them that needed to be shared with the rest of the family and whom you shared it
hmm
with.
It's that reciprocity. And by
Mhm.
the way, Michael, I was kind of joking, but he did. There was a lot of Michael. So
I've never, like, because we
yeah,
have email.
yeah,
I've never once been tempted to call you Michael, and it just
yeah,
came out. Like, it kept coming out. I was like, "Where's this coming from?"
yeah,
Yeah. So that's so cool. I could see
yeah.
why you're a writer, though, from how you described yourself as a child, because I think to be a good writer, which I would consider you to be,
Thank you.
is that you have to have that type of super creativity and imagination and all those little bits and pieces to bring it together to weave a story that people want to read.
hmm
Because you could read nonfiction and it can get quite dry, but if you've got a creative writer, and I'm not saying that's you, I'm saying not the creative writer part, I'm talking about the dry nonfiction.
hmm
If you have a really good creative writer, you could write the phone book and people would read it because you have that ability to craft the story and draw them in.
Yeah, telling the story, and I think it takes a few things, and not that I'm pontificating about writing, but it takes a few things. One is I like the way the Russians say you need to have a good butt, and what that means is you have to sit it down and do the work. There is inspiration, but writing, actually, from the writing comes inspiration, and from the writing, the work and the sweat comes. There's birth that happens in that
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was writing, it's funny. I'll tell you the story of Mescalito. That
Yeah, let's get into it because that's an interesting title.
So it actually comes from a song that Peter Rowan, who I will talk about,
Okay.
that one of his songs, and he says it's called the song is called "The Free Mexican Air Force," and
Okay.
it's sort of about the legalization of marijuana is really what the song is about, and how the government is trying to stop that because they want to imprison your light and your illumination and
Mhm.
your freedom is the premise of the song. And the line is uh Mescalito riding his white horse.
Is
So
that what that's about? Because I don't have a problem with that. I don't
yeah,
use it myself. I actually, and I'm not encouraging one way or another, we don't give any
yeah,
kind of advice. I mean,
sure,
just for
yeah,
listeners, medical advice. But even though I come from a big pharma background, I always say I really look for something natural always. And I think that that is one of nature's medicines for many people. I do.
yeah, oh yeah. And so, just to tell you a little bit about the book and the conception of the book. So I had been doing music interviews with musicians,
Mhm.
and I'd done some. I did an interview with Scott Sherrard, who was the guitar player for Greg Allman, and
Okay.
it was very serendipitous how I discovered him. Essentially went to a bar with a friend who forced me to go out because he was in from out of town and said, "Let's go
Mhm.
to the local bar, small bar, but they have phenomenal performers and bands that play." So we go, go to the bar. I'm kind of begrudgingly having a beer, and I can't believe this player, and he is just amazing. And anyway, I looked him up. That was Scott Sherrard,
Mhm.
and he played with Greg Allman, which is a very big deal. Um, and he plays with Little Feat now. He's basically, if you know Little Feat, he's the Lowell George of Little Feat. So that's a huge big deal.
I'm not familiar with him. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I should have my partner Dell here. He'd be having a field day with you with music because he listens to all kinds of music, and I'm not familiar with a lot of these artists. That's why I was excited to have you on because I knew you would educate me.
Yeah,
Everybody.
yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I'm sort of deeply into it. Um, so I, was doing music interviews with different musicians,
Mhm.
and I was also simultaneously interviewing indigenous artists.
I love it.
So there's a long story. I'll try not to go too much into it, but a friend of mine, the friend that the my friend Carlos, who he put on the exhibit of my father's work,
Mhm.
he's Guatemalan and he's half indigenous.
Okay.
And when I would go to his studio and he was doing portraits. So he does portraits with MTA, New York City MTA uh, uh, cards. So a subway card. I'm
Okay.
not, maybe folks don't know what they look like, but they're essentially like orange, black, and orange, black, and yellow, and those kinds of colors. He cuts them out very meticulously. He uses, scopes, and he uses even gold gild, and he makes portraits, and they
You
are
know what? I saw a
incredible.
picture of that. I swear to God, when you were talking about the cards, like literally, I thought, I bet she's going to say portraits and these incredible faces that until you, I bet you get up really close, you don't even know what they're made of, right?
Yes, and uncanny artist, incredible skill. So he was doing these portraits of indigenous artists, and it connects to Mescalito. We'll get there. I'm in his studio. We go there on a Friday night. We just kind of hang out, have a few beers. We'll talk art, but we're also just having fun. Other people stop by. In the in He has portraits of Crazy Horse, for example. But he had one portrait. I'm looking back. I said, "What's that portrait right there? You kind of have it's the one behind over there."
Hmm.
Takes the portrait out, and the portrait is of this guy Ernie Panicoli. Now
Hmm.
Ernie Panicoli is half Cree, and he's actually half Italian by his name,
Interesting.
from Brooklyn, and he is a hip hop photographer. So he's photographed all of the big hip hop names,
Hmm.
and I think if you meet Ernie, he's a kind of no BS type of guy.
Yep.
He's got a real groundedness to him. He comes from places that many of these kinds of the rap artists come from, and I think they had a trust for him.
So
And when you
he
see
gets it.
when you see his photos, he captures something about them, and there's a trust that you could see. There's a relaxedness, and that's why he was so famous. Anyway, this portrait of Ernie, I say I have to meet Ernie. I have to talk to him. So I wound up doing an interview with Ernie. Subsequently, we've become pretty good friends.
That's cool.
At some point, Ernie said he felt like he trusted me. I did the article, and uh, the eyes of the portrait were so alive. They were just, you could feel a spirit behind the eyes.
Hmm.
And I said, Ernie said, "Hey, Mike, would you be interested in interviewing this Tibetan singer, Yungchin Lamo?" And
Interesting.
I said, "Sure." And he goes, because he couldn't help it. He says, you have to take care of her. You have to, I trust you. And I said, of course, Ernie. Of course I'll take care of her. I'll do the right thing. Be very respectful. I met Yungchin I actually met her. This was during COVID. So
Hmm.
we did a Zoom call, and she was dressed. She's from Tibet, and she was wearing Tibetan, regalia. And as I'm speaking to her, she's praying, because this is something Tibetans often do. So she was,
Oh
as
my
we're
goodness.
speaking, yeah, it was kind of, it took me a few seconds. Um,
Culture comes in once again, right?
Culture comes in,
Mhm.
and I've been I've been meditating. I've been interested in Buddhism. I'm interested in world religions. I'm interested in wisdom traditions in general, but I do like the metaphysics. I'm very drawn to the metaphysics of Buddhism. I'm drawn to the ethical and the moral aspects of it. Not that I live, firmly by those. I do my best, aspirationally, to live by them.
We all do. We
We all
try
do.
our
Well,
best.
we're flawed. We're flawed.
Yep.
And anyway, I had read that Yungchin, who she miraculously left Tibet, fled Tibet with her son on her back, she said, and found herself in Australia, where she got into the music scene, and she was picked up by Peter Gabriel's record label.
Oh, wow.
Big deal. She put
Mhm.
out an album. She was a big sensation. She's been on the world stage with Paul McCartney and other
Oh, wow.
folks. When she met Ernie Panacoli, she met him at some gala, and she said, Ernie said to me, he goes, she walked up to me. He looks indigenous. He, she said, he said, she walked up to me, put her hands on my hands, and basically called me a brother. And he said he was so moved by her that,
Yeah.
and it was emotional, and he was sort of, it was a little embarrassing, all these people, Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, and this woman singles him out. Anyway, I had read that Jung Chin met with, had performed with Peter Rowan,
Mhm.
who is a bluegrass legend. So that's really who the book is inspired by, Peter Rowan.
Okay.
So I said, she said, "Would you like to meet him?" I never ask people when I meet musicians. They've played with the big ones. They've played with,
It's kind of tacky though, really,
it's
right? Like,
tacky.
how do you
I never ask.
I always say I never really wanna be famous unless you had a lot of people around you when you were nobody, right? Because somebody always wants something from you. It's true.
It's very much, and I'm as a music journalist. I often my I want them to feel comfortable. At the end of the day, it's my greatest goal is I don't, by the way, interview people or musicians and artists
Mhm.
that I don't really like. So because
Okay.
I don't, what's the point of writing an article about music or art or something you don't like? I just don't. That's not me. I'm not going to go there. But when she said, "Do you want to talk to Peter?" I mean, I would have said, "Can you please introduce me to Peter Rowan?" So she said, "Do you want to talk to him?" I said, "Yes." Uh, we texted, and then she says, "He's waiting for your call." Now, let me dial back a little bit. So Peter Rowan played. I realize many people may not know what bluegrass is. I'll sort of talk about it for a bit. So bluegrass is basically, it's a form of it's in a way a subgenre of country music.
Mhm.
It's faster. There's an emphasis on kind of gospel singing. Uh, there's an emphasis on musician virtuosity,
Mhm.
and so it's kind of like country music, but it's a little bit more. Of course, it's
I
evolved, and
was
it's
trying to find a bluegrass Christmas song because I like to kind of make my banners for the show, but I couldn't find one that jived with me. So I'm interested in hearing your take on this, why you're drawn to it, and I'm already hearing some interesting things. So,
yeah. When I was a kid, I mean, you couldn't be more further away from bluegrass, being from Queens, New York in the '70s. You couldn't be more far away. But
right.
it did eke in through the culture. It came in through things like hee haw, and it comes in
I've
through
heard of
even
that. Mhm.
advertisements. It's in there
Mhm.
in the culture. So we got bits of it. Deliverance, the movie,
I've never seen that movie. I
it's a
know the
pretty
song.
intense movie. Yeah,
Mhm.
very intense movie.
I know what it's about, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the music was, performed by very established bluegrass musicians. When I heard bluegrass, um, here and there. But the important thing to say as well is that Peter Rowan, who played with Bill Monroe, who's considered the father of bluegrass, he
Okay.
did he did kind of uh, he did create something new. There were different kinds of things like ragtime. There was um, gospel music. There was country music. There was Western swing. But he kind of cobbled it all together and created this very different form that hadn't yet existed. So Peter played with Bill Monroe. He was a kid. He was maybe 22, 23, touring the world with him. He left Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys, and then he went on to become a kind of uh, play psychedelic music. He's kind of earned a reputation as being a kind of psychedelic cowboy. Anyway,
Interesting.
he played in a group called Old and in the Way,
Mhm.
and Old and in the Way, one of the members was Jerry Garcia.
I
So
know who that is.
yeah, exactly. But that's exactly the point that you hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
Jerry Garcia had such a huge footprint and such a huge following, the Grateful Dead, that
Mhm.
what they were attracted to is, I think Peter was attracted to Jerry's um, imagination and incredible musical journey that Jerry Garcia had launched. Jerry was attracted to Peter's. He's one of the sources. He played with Bill Monroe, so their music brought bluegrass to people like me and to people around, people from the cities, not people from only from Rosine, Kentucky, or from Tennessee, or from those parts where
Okay,
maybe
so
the
I want to ask you, it's driving me
yeah,
crazy. So,
sure.
okay, I want to ask if this is the same person I'm thinking of. Have you heard of the comedian Leanne Morgan?
I have, yes.
Okay, she talks about her eldest son being a little old man and into bluegrass and country, and I'm positive she said his favorite artist was Bill Monroe. It was either Bill Monroe or something to that effect. I don't know if it was or not. What I because I'm positive that's the genre he would have been quite old, quite a little old man. I think he's still
Yeah.
alive, is he not?
Bill Monroe, he passed away.
Okay.
He would, yeah, he would probably be like near 100
Yeah, because
then.
he was old. Like her son's probably in his mid to late 20s, it sounds like. But when he was a little boy, and they're from Tennessee. And I'm positive she was talking about this Bill Monroe because she talks about it in one of her comedy things. And I'm
Yeah.
positive. I had to ask you because I think that's who she was talking about. Was
If she
her
likes
hero.
bluegrass, she probably likes Bill Monroe because
No,
he's
it
the
was her
one.
son as a little boy. She was
Her
talking
son.
about him being this little old man in a little boy's body and bringing him to bluegrass and gospel concerts when little, teenagers didn't go to those kind of things. And it
Right,
was her
right.
son. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Sorry, I had to
dragged.
ask you.
No, please, please. It's best when it's two way. I get so caught up in what I'm saying, so I apologize if I'm
No, I'm like glued to this listening.
and so I had, I really, from this group Olden in the Way, myself and many people. I know this because I'm involved in different bluegrass groups, and I write for bluegrass journals, and we all know that Olden in the Way was an ambassador. So they
Mhm,
brought bluegrass to city folks and to folks outside that world. And
mhm,
Peter Rowan wrote a bunch of those songs. Panama Red, he'll steal your woman, then he'll rob your head. Panama Red,
mhm,
and he wrote in that group. He wrote the principal songs, and so when I had a chance to interview him, oh, I should add too. Now let's fast forward a little bit.
mhm,
So I'd heard, bluegrass through different things. I heard bluegrass through Olden in the Way. A friend of mine had a vast music collection, and he kind of had a hippie music collection. And
mhm.
Olden in the Way would be in that kind of milieu. They
Okay.
it was bluegrass brought to hippies, and I don't say that in any kind of judgmental or any way at all. Just that's because of Jerry Garcia, that connective tissue brought those worlds together, and
Okay.
it truly launched a whole new revival of the music. Um, then when my brother went to college, so I'm 2 years younger than my brother. He went to college. I went to his dorm room, and I'm in his dorm room, and I hear this music, bluegrass, and it's loud, and it's breakneck speed, and I just turned around. I'm kind of gripped by it, like a calling, like a deer called into the woods, like um, a magician showing you something and then you go follow and you so I go and I listen. It's this guy from Virginia. I walked into his room. He's probably, who are you?
Mhm.
And I started asking him about the music, and he said it was the Stanley Brothers. He kind of told me, schooled me a little bit.
That sounds familiar, the Stanley Brothers.
Yeah, you would know them maybe from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh my
So
God,
yeah,
you're not gonna believe this. This
yeah.
happens on my show lots. You know what I've been thinking of? I'm
What's that?
positive I've been thinking about this for the last 10 minutes. I was gonna ask you, there's gotta be some music. I know there is an oh brother, where art thou? Because the reason why is my partner Dell, who has a musician background, loves that soundtrack. He doesn't play it all the time, but he loves the music from that. Like if you met
Right.
my partner, Dell. People always assume so many things about him. He has really long hair. He is Métis, which would be your friend Ernie. I was thinking that's what we would call it in Canada. It's a
Mm,
First Nations
mm,
nationality with another nationality, but
mm.
people think that he does illegal substances. He doesn't. And he's actually a really smart guy. Like when I
Yeah.
first met him, he had short hair and he's grown it longer because it looks good on him long, I think. But when he told me he listened to things like Britney Spears or Justin Timberlake and then oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And you know what he does when he wants to drive me crazy? Sorry to divert. I know we'll get back to the story quickly. And this is the big joke.
Yeah.
I really don't appreciate polka. I'm sorry. I just
Polka.
can't into it.
It's
Okay, so we go to a lot of concerts. When you said you and your wife sit and listen to music, yeah, we do too. We have music on all the time at our house. That's a big thing going to concerts. He plays this group. Is it called Hammerstein or something? It's a polka
it's
band. Do you
oh,
know
I
of
don't
them?
know them. I don't
Okay,
know of them.
he sent me the name of it before, and I've shared it with a few people. They play like "Sweet Child of Mine" by Guns N' Roses, but polka, or Lady Gaga, and he'll just crank it because he
Oh my
knows,
gosh.
just to not to make me mad. I wouldn't get mad anyways, but it's just like, how do you like this?
Right. Right.
So you just said, "Oh brother, where art thou?" And I've been thinking that for 10 minutes, and I thought, well, when we have a little pause, I'm going to ask you about it, and you just said it.
Well, that's because we're communicating. But
Yes.
the the um the album that Olden and the Way put out was the most successful bluegrass album until "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" came out, and
Ah, okay.
and that really launched. That kind of brought, it popularized because it's always been regional and kind of in the background.
Mhm.
Um, but where I was going with it is that when I had I'd grown up with this music, and I'd
Mhm.
grown up listening to it in we grew up in projects, and in the
Mhm.
winter when it was freezing cold, we would sit in the
Oh my God.
project stairways
Mhm.
and have a little not an 8 track, it was a cassette radio, and would listen to music, and
The
this
ghetto
music would
blaster, we used to call
ghetto
it.
blaster. Oh yeah, yeah, I have a funny story. Well, I have stories about my the attempted theft of my ghetto blaster.
How dare they?
Oh my gosh. It was pretty intense.
I
It was
believe
pretty
you.
intense.
Mhm.
Um, but that when you hear something all of your life, it just music gets deep into your subconscious. It
Your
becomes part of the
soul.
fabric,
It
your
becomes
soul.
part of your soul. And you know what I always say about our genre too? And I always think, oh God, we sound like we're 90 years old going back in my day. But no, if you think about our genre, like if they were, I always hate labels that they call us Gen Xers or millennials, but I think we are one of the most malleable age periods in our modern times because back in the day, if you had a TV, it was black and white. You might have had one channel. And then remember the phones, like one of the funniest videos on YouTube is when people show their kids the rotary phone and say, how do you use it? And kids have no idea. Like we're all in the back in the day. If you needed privacy, you're yanking that phone cord in your room and closing the door. And then, when you tell people you didn't have a portable phone, and then you went to, we finally had color TVs, and there was 8 tracks for music back in the day, and records. And now records are becoming an art form again, which I think is very important. But you went from
Mhm,
8 tracks, and then eventually you went to CDs and DVDs and VCR tapes, and then you're going to MP3 players. And
mhm.
we really had to change a lot. We had no computers now.
True.
Mhm.
It's very
So
true.
I think we're very diverse.
And things changed. They did. They changed
Mhm.
rapidly. I mean, I had
Mhm.
albums, cassettes, then CDs, and then now
Do you remember when
and
you
who
used to
knows?
buy a whole cassette just for one song?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I did have 8 tracks too. I mean, I do remember having an eight
My
track.
dad had them, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember. Mhm,
And we had some. I don't remember the artist, but music has that way of, if you think when you at weddings, the
mhm,
funerals,
mhm.
at graduations,
Yeah,
at revolutions, there's music accompanying good and bad. But it becomes it's so evocative. You can hear a song, I can start crying. I could listen to something and just
Mhm.
be reminded of a time, of a place. It's
You know
that
why I think
it's
why? You know why
pardon?
I think it's so important? You know why? 'Cause I think one of our first senses in the womb to develop is hearing, and when we leave this earth, that is our last sense to go.
Mm,
Having worked in
mm,
palliative care, people that are in
mm,
comas, people that are palliative, that is their last sense to go, and I think that
mm.
that's why one of the reasons
Yeah,
is it's ingrained
I
in.
agree with you.
Mhm.
And I'm exploring it. I mean, music cleanses the soul. It cleans us.
Absolutely.
Um, it's um, it's the best way to reach the soul. I mean, it is. I shouldn't say it's one way. It is a way to reach the soul. There are many
Music
ways
from
to do that.
heaven, okay,
Yeah.
and there aren't words in our language to explain the colors and what you see and the
Mm,
music. Like, and you could see why when you've had an experience and it gets so ingrained in your soul and there's music that you associate with that. Or think about even a movie, how boring a
hmm.
movie would be with no music. And people don't think about those kind of things or even the sound effects.
Yeah.
That's what makes the experience. Music is
Hmm.
really almost the language of life, I think.
I agree, and it's it has a depth to it because it's beyond language. It goes into places of your brain and your body and your experience, and some are tucked away. Some are kind of,
Mhm,
maybe they're memories, maybe they're pockets, the Akashic records. It kind of triggers
mhm,
these callings, and they could be from a time you in this life didn't experience.
mhm.
So there's that richness. So when I finally did, I interviewed Peter. Now Peter is 82 now. When
Okay.
I interviewed him, say, like, let's say 4 or 3 years ago. I don't remember.
Mhm.
This is a person that has had 50 albums, has
Oh,
played
wow.
with everyone, has
Mhm,
played with, with many, many musicians. So vast career. And here I am calling him to have a half-hour conversation, to write an article.
that's not
He
gonna
would,
happen.
well, we spoke, no, and he's also a raconteur. So Pete, we spoke for about 2.5 hours,
Mhm,
and I couldn't get enough. But what was happening to me is I started to have dreams. So when you're doing an article, you're going to have some correspondence, you're going to have a few conversations,
mhm,
and it doesn't necessarily end in that half hour. You might iterate over email, but I started to have wild, imaginings and wild dreams. And
you had a past life with this. I think you've had a couple past lives with him, I'm feeling.
well, and I think that you say that is kind of what the book is about. Is we sort of meet. There's this
I did not
recurrence.
know that. I
Well,
did not know that before this.
you seem to. There's a lot you do know, so
Mhm,
you can hear, and we kind of meet in this. We're fated to meet again in this life. I mean, think of the improbability from walking into my friend's uh, art gallery,
mhm,
studio, I should say. It's a studio slash gallery. Seeing something behind something, and then
mhm,
from the improbable kind of synchronistic events that then lead me to meet someone whose music is at the very foundation of my experience. It's
mhm,
pretty profound. And I was telling Peter, I said, well, after we kind of did the article, I said, I'm having these imaginings, these kind of dreams. I have these ideas. Would you be interested in a longer project?
mhm,
And then he said, tell me about the project, and something to the effect that how, music spawns the universe, something to that effect.
mhm.
And he goes, I'm interested.
Of course.
Yeah, Peter's a far out guy, but people like him, he was just inducted into the Bluegrass Hall of Fame. He's got people like that have a lot of people clawing at them. Like we said,
Yeah, but
earlier,
don't you love the beauty of a soul like that? Because he sounds very down to earth. Like
very down to earth.
he's not about look who I am, look who I played with, look at how amazing I am. He's down to earth, and I almost feel like he has an innate sense with speaking with you that he knows when people are true souls, like they're coming for the right reasons. They're not wanting something from him, because this book sounds like it celebrates who he is and the experiences, but I'll let you tell it in your own
Yeah.
words.
No,
Mhm.
that's very true. I mean, if I'm honest, the book is it certainly wasn't a work of criticism. So I never call what I do criticism. I call
Mhm.
it like post-critical. I'm an enthusiast. I'm a music fanatic. I'm deeply
Mhm.
interested in the details. So I think that my intention was to lay a gift at the feet of the master to say, this is, you have inspired this, because that's, the title is Inspired by the Musical Adventures of Peter Rowan. Someone like him who's, who talked, hung out with Dylan and hung out with Jerry Garcia. Not so much the big names, but they were on the inside of the culture story. So
Mhm.
there's something very profound. And he is a literary person. He's interested in wisdom traditions. He's a learned, interested man.
Mhm.
He's done more than bluegrass. And as I've mentioned, he's done like kind of rock, psychedelic music,
Mhm.
also Tex-Mex music. Um, and
Okay,
he
so
has,
explain that to me because I'm not
yeah.
quite sure what that is.
So it's in in uh, in uh, in Texas, you actually have a lot of German population moved to
Really?
Texas,
Wow.
and there are towns that have German names. And it's interesting, the kind of music they brought was polka. So you have like what you call umpapa. If you hear ranchero music, which is
Mhm.
Mexican country music,
Yeah, I've
you'll
heard
hear
of that. Yeah.
pa 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 pa
Mhm.
pa pa. So there's that umpapa aspect to it. So Peter went. He's played with musicians uh, that natively grew up playing, listening to this music. Flaco Jimenez is an accordion player
Okay.
who comes from that tradition. But Peter's also performed, written, and played Hawaiian music. So
Oh.
he plays. He is an ambassador of music. He's not exclusive. He's known for bluegrass because that's how labels and
Mhm.
promoters and all that kind of stuff. But when I've spoken to him, he's listening to jazz. We're usually discussing jazz or other music or classical or philosophy. So we go way off, and that's what that book kind of explores. He was kind of blowing my mind, if to put it in a
Well, didn't you get into Buddhism in this book? This is just flying by
yeah,
the way. It's already
yeah.
7:20 PM.
Oh, cool,
I
awesome,
know. So,
great.
didn't you just get into Buddhism? And I was reading something about the birds and things about.
Yeah, yeah. So there was some interesting things. I'll read a section, but because
Please
Peter is
do.
a Buddhist, he has an album called Dharma Blues, and they're sort of Buddhist inspired songs. So they have
Wow.
somewhat of a kind of bluegrassy, country-ish, but they're very listenable. You don't have to be a bluegrass fan at all to like that
Mhm.
album. But that album specifically kind of blew me away. As I said, I've practiced meditation. I've gone to temples and have meditated for many years,
Mhm.
both Zen and Tibetan and other Buddhist temples, and I feel an affinity for the teachings. And what's interesting about the teachings, it's not Buddhism is maybe less of a religion and a way of looking at the
It's a
world.
way of life.
It's a way
Mhm.
of life and of looking at the world. And it's sort of like, well, you don't believe it, investigate it. You do the work. And what I found in some of my, interests in ufology,
Mhm.
there's a great affinity and a great connection in uh, taking a look at the phenomenon and having an open mind to the reality, the consensus reality that we experience, but what is beyond and bigger than that.
But that's
Uh,
the problem, right? Because you have to have an open mind. And for those that don't, right? Like, I love the beauty of life. I try to learn something new every day. You treat people as the way you would like to be treated.
Hmm.
I'm not a Buddhist and I haven't studied it, no, but I know a little bit about it and it makes so much sense to me, including that when you're so close minded, and I'm not saying this with judgment, but I think people close their world off when they're so close minded to not even possibly entertain the idea that just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right?
Hmm.
When it comes to
Hmm.
ufology or anything within the paranormal, think about even how scorned people are that use their intuition or call themselves a psychic or a medium or anything like that. And everybody has this ability. One of my messages to people and to the world, I believe, is to help people remember how incredibly powerful we are with our
Yeah.
minds, our words, and our emotions. And we've never been taught to embrace that.
I completely agree with you. I mean, it's interesting, we live in our little worlds, and all of us do, and then we get so consumed with our concerns. Um, but we live in a universe that has, what is it? It is two. It is 100 billion galaxies or something
That we know of.
that we know of, right? And what we see, what we experience in our everyday lives. There's a reality to that. I mean, there's a real losing people is hard, and
It's
pain is
Yes.
hard. But these are kind of what is presenting at the surface too. And there's to think that the title of my new book that's coming out is called "For All We Know,"
Oh,
because
no
for all
way.
we know, and
Mhm,
I'll talk a little bit about that later.
mhm.
But for all we know, we don't know a lot.
We
We're
don't.
really nascent. We're little babies out there,
That's how
and just
spirit explains humanity, and um, I've had some experiences with missing time and possibly UFOs. I have some incredible videos I've taken, and
mm,
but my whole point is when you connect with, and there are beings that will connect with us if you want. And people may think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, they will. And it's always shown to me from a spiritual perspective, or even from, well, I don't like to call them aliens. I think that's very disrespectful. So if extraterrestrial, however you want to describe it, but we are a young race, and I know humanity confounds other races. They Never mind that we're a young race, but our propensity for violence and some of the more negative emotions and things like that, because they've evolved so much further past that. Plus, I also believe, if you believe in reincarnation, that many of us have already had lives on other planets and as other, extraterrestrials or species,
hmm
whatever you want to call it, right?
hmm yeah, our science, which I value empirical science, but our
Hmm.
science gets too wrapped up in its own story. And if
Hmm.
you think of, science is often, there's a revolution in science. And then suddenly what is known becomes now just a smaller piece of a greater puzzle. So, we're constantly relearning, or reevaluating. I mean, look at the quantum, physics. Uh, you can be uh, Things can be particles and waves. They can be in two
Hmm.
places. They can experiments can show two results, or a
Hmm.
myriad of results of in doing experiments. We can't predict exactly, um, the where particles will be. We can predict them by statistical
Oh, I'm still
probability.
here. Sorry, my battery, I was unplugged. I didn't even know. Sorry.
You were
No,
unplugged, man.
I didn't even know. That's why I was like, oh, you know what's so odd about this? And I swear to God, if there was ever a fly on my wall at the house, Dell, my partner Dell, and I work with two other psychic mediums and channels. We were talking just about this quantum physics and vibration and frequency and harmonics and this stuff on the weekend. I swear to God, we were.
You were sending me notes, kind of through the ether.
Well,
But
Kevin,
there's.
I'm going to read his comment.
Yeah,
We'll have to have a listen. Kevin says, I keep hearing whispering voice when I'm speaking.
really.
So we'll
When
have to
I'm speaking or you?
when I am. So
Mm,
I don't know. Maybe we've got. I have had EVPs, and people have had EVPs happen. I don't know.
mm.
Maybe it's your dad. I don't know. Maybe you'll hear
Well,
some.
please tell me what he's saying.
I don't know. Like I said, I'll have a listen. And Kevin or
Yeah,
Zen Dragon, there's other regular people here too listening. He goes, past few times you spoke. So like he'll have a listen. Probably I'll have a listen. Anybody in the replay. So if any of you listening and you hear that or you pick it up, please be sure to send it to me or Mike. You're on Facebook too. I know I'm going to give you a chance at the end or wherever on
yeah,
social media. Let Mike have a listen too if you pick it up, if you can isolate it. We'll see what we hear.
yeah.
Mhm,
Well, thank you,
mhm,
thank you. Yeah, and so I think that just to go back to that's what attracted me to Buddhism, but I think it's completely consistent with what I've read
mhm,
in ufology. And what's interesting is while writing this book, I often when I'm writing something, I start reading things to get inspiration. And so I came upon a book called The Flip by Jeff Kripal, which
okay.
is about paranormal and it's about ufology. And it's a very concise book, very readable. And that, if I showed you my library, my wife is beginning to get worried. It's increased a third fold or so, and the UFO phenomena, which includes paranormal subject, uh, uh, of course the UFO subject, and it gets very deep into philosophy of mind, and
Mhm.
I think recently more so it's become a compendium of related subjects. I just went this weekend to there's the anomalous in New York City. They've had these anomalous events, and it's a gathering of people from different disciplines. Some are philosophers, some are
Mhm.
psychics, some are former government people, and it's
I love
a
talking
different.
about that.
All of these people coming together and
Mhm.
kind of with a different point of view. Some are pure scientists at
Mhm.
some point were only just scientific thinking and then had experiences that made them question the education that they received and the kind of, I would say, mainstream view of what is acceptable interpretations of the universe.
Okay, so who's the judge of that, though, right? When you ask what's acceptable, that question came
Yeah,
to mind right away. Who gets
yeah.
to judge what's acceptable and what's not? So I'm dying to hear this. What,
I mean, I think a lot of it is I think where that those paradigms come from. I think at the end of, in this is my opinion, I think that the institutions, the corporations that kind of control messages. Because for us to be divinely inspired by who we
yeah.
are and what this experience is, and the interconnectivity between, me and which is very Buddhist, between me and you, and between me and a mountain, me and the trees and the birds. When if I start to become too enamored with that, I become a danger to the corporations and the institutions. Government and corporations are kind
Mhm.
of bound up together. And so I think that they are the ones, if I'm to call someone out, to call something out, because, and a part of what people ask for disclosure on UFO subject.
Mhm.
So I kind of feel, the government doesn't, first of all, they don't know what to say. What are they going to say? They're going to say, well, there are these things that happen that, frankly, we don't understand. They are
I
magical. It
think
is.
they know more than
They
they're.
do know more. Yeah,
You know
but they
what
don't.
Delta said this weekend, and I don't know why, but he said, I've never heard him say this, but when we were having this conversation, he has said, I have a funny feeling in the year 2024 that we're going to be finding out a lot of things that we weren't told. We're going to see a fall of a lot of old belief systems and things. And he seems to feel 2024, it's the year of the dragon, and that there's going to be
Mm,
a lot of things that fall and a lot of things that are revealed and in a positive way that are revealed.
yeah, and I pray that that's true. And
So
I
do I.
think that's what,
But it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
right. Right. And that's what my new book is about this discovery, this arc of discovery from maybe a skeptic who's creative, kind of
I'm
I wouldn't,
hoping you're going to come back and talk. Not that
oh,
I'm
I'm definitely,
going anywhere, but I'm hoping you're going to come back and talk about your new book too.
please, please. I definitely want to.
Mhm.
Um, but what is when I was researching this, it led me on, and I kind of come back to this theme of a call from somewhere. And you when someone makes the call, you got to pick up the phone.
Mhm.
And I dialed into this. I would say prior to I certainly wasn't educated on the topic. And so having then read through and gotten deep into it, and now corresponding with ufologists and people studying the phenomena. And as in all things, just like with musicians, people can tell when you are truly passionate and interested, and they can tell when you have an agenda. My
Yeah.
agenda is I'm eager and interested to learn, and I want to be in conversation, and I'm interested to be taught. Ideally, it would be a kind of a dialogue. Um, but that was all launched from, I'm going to dial it back. It all is launched from looking at a picture of Ernie Panicoli and this kind of catapulting of a forward movement. And, here I am today. Um, Writing this book was, I would say, it was very gutsy because it begins as an interview. So it begins as an interview, and then I'm going to go on and I'm going to read something for you. Um, Let
When
me
you
find
grab it, though, you know what I'm going to add, though? I love
Yeah.
to have people on that maybe have a topic. Well, first of all, that maybe I haven't talked about, but also have an interesting concept for a book. And I want to know how you end up with bluegrass and these topics, right? And you bring it all together because I think it makes for a very interesting, profound discussion. So please share what you were going to share. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, and well, thank you. And I will say that I think it took guts to write something that combines interview. It's different modes. Uh, Interview with creative writing, with
Mhm,
basically dream journal. Um, I take Peter's story, but it's also my relationship, the inspiration
mhm.
that he brought to me. So it's not a biography, a biography of him. There are biographical aspects to it, but I do want to read one piece if I could find it. I'll get to it.
You know
Um,
what? Though you strike me as the type of person that when you see a story that needs to be written and you feel it from the depths of your soul, right? It's almost like it writes itself. I'm not saying there wasn't work involved, but like you said, it took guts to do this because
mhm.
there's not a book necessarily exactly like this one, but it's very profound how three subjects you normally wouldn't hear put together all come together in one book.
Yeah, I think for anyone that is inspired and has an idea, pursue it, go for it. Um, Whatever crazy it sounds, just you never know. And the manuscript was accepted in a kind of a raw. They're still working on it,
Mhm.
but I think they saw the potential of the idea. And it's interesting. Some people have read. I think some people are very moved by it, and because it does fill a niche of something that hadn't been done. But I'll read a little bit here,
Mhm.
and this is called. I should say, I've peppered throughout the prose words from Peter's songs, which is something you're not allowed to do typically. Peter gave me authorization.
Aw,
So
beautiful.
very nice of him. So this is called I Have Been Illusion's Fool, and I'll read parts of it, just a little bit. I had a dream weeks after our meeting with Peter. In the dream, I was given a sacred object, perhaps by extraterrestrials. The object looked benign. When I looked closer, a likeness of green and I saw a likeness of a green and purple Yoda.
Beautiful.
But the image could only be discovered by holding the object sideways and upside down, like the way you might suddenly hear the encoded messages in bluegrass or in other music. You had to discover the primer to truly hear it. You had to come to this realization. It was as if a hysterical cosmic joke had been revealed to me, telling me that the mind is formed of constructs that are built on yet more atomic constructs,
Mhm.
and that this miniaturization continues into emptiness. Yes, we have agency, but we are enmeshed in history. Our minds are trapped in the context in which they are formed. Dreams, meditations, psychedelic experiences
Mhm.
may help us see through the illusion, but even those epiphanies are ephemeral. We are star stuff, dust accumulated.
Mhm.
The wind can blow us away. And while logic is vital to our existence, compassion is our compass.
That that just meant every word meant so
Mhm.
much, and I got it. Kevin, no worry about the title or typos. Z Sun Dragon is Kevin. He said,
Oh, thank you. Hey
he
there.
says, interesting stuff, Mike.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to talk about it, to answer. I'll read something here as well.
That was
So,
beautiful too, Mike, by the way.
well, thank you. Thank you. This is me talking to Peter. And I said in one interview, I said, the interviewer asked you, what was it like to go from playing bluegrass to playing in a psychedelic band? And your answer was, what could be more psychedelic than bluegrass? And I said, I love that answer. Can you tell me more what you meant?
Yeah.
He said, the veil that keeps bluegrass from being appreciated more deeply is that notes go by too fast. The fiddle was the only sustaining instrument in a bluegrass ensemble. The guitar has occasional leads, but is mostly rhythm, hidden down in the matrix of counter rhythms. When it worked, it was transportive. Bluegrass is extremely hard to play true to its potential. I've heard tapes of Bill Monroe shows where the band wasn't up to it, but that didn't stop Bill Monroe. The band could be dragging behind, but Bill wouldn't let them drag behind. One of the first things he told me before I joined the band, and one of the last things he said was, and pardon my southern accent, Pete, I could have taken on all the bluegrass boys and they couldn't have wrestled me to the ground. I'd have had them hanging on me like hound dogs off a grizzly bear, and they couldn't pull me down.
Mhm.
Not even Gordon Terry, and he was stout. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I think a lot of people will say. Well, you've played this psychedelic music. How does that relate to this other kind of
That
music?
would have been one of my questions. Like, how do you, but that makes a lot of sense because, and I didn't want to sound disrespectful. The one thing there's two genres I really can't appreciate, and one is polka. The
Mm,
other was country. But again, my partner, Dell, was working at a previous job, and they were playing music all day long, and all they listened to is country. And before you know, he starts coming home playing country. But what I can appreciate with country, and I know there's a standard joke that my dog died, my wife left me, and I got no money, and whatever. But there is the occasional artist, and the one that I've started listening to that I really enjoy, and maybe it's his story, I don't know what it is, but Jelly Roll.
mm,
That guy, he mixes rap and country, which you don't normally hear. I don't so much listen to
mhm,
that, but he's got a song out there right now called Need a Favor and Somebody Save Me. My God,
mm,
the pipes on that guy and the lyrics. And you know who taught me to appreciate the lyrics again? Dell. And I
mm.
never realized that's why I did a video when I started really following my spiritual path was the lyrics. And I love the band Hailstorm
Yeah.
and I Am the Fire. And I went through those lyrics and channeled some of the stuff from Spirit about what she was saying. And it wasn't just about women, it was about, I think, human beings. And when you start
Mhm.
knowing the story and what's behind the lyrics versus what we just think we're singing mindlessly when we listen to the radio, there is so much heart and soul that goes
Yeah,
into each song. People bare their souls
absolutely.
with music. Mhm.
And I, Charlie Parker, famous jazz
Yep,
musician,
I know who he is. My
he
brother is a big fan.
yeah, yeah. So
Mhm,
his peers would say, "But Charlie, why are you listening to jazz? Why are you listening to this country music?" He was a big country music fan. He would say, "Listen to the words, listen
mhm,
to the stories." So just to what you're saying is that you have these stories, these heartfelt, um, and I think that's what appealed to Americans. And it's funny because things get classified, things get labels. Bill Monroe said, he said, "If I hadn't invented bluegrass, I'd have made a great bluesman." And we hear sometimes it's often by racial lines, but in the truth is when you're down on the Delta, country is blues, is country.
mhm,
And when Elvis sang, it was blues and country and all of it mixed together. And oftentimes is. You'll hear country singers and there's a kind of we can't escape it. There's blues in the music.
mhm.
It's like what's in the water. You
Well,
can't
even jazz though, right?
yeah,
Like
totally.
there's some
Yeah.
upbeat jazz, and I could never understand when I was younger why people appreciate jazz. But until you really understand jazz and what's behind it, like you've got to
Mhm.
have a lot of soul and
Yeah.
rhythm and create.
Yeah.
You really got to feel the music to be able to play jazz. You do. I think any kind
Absolutely.
of music, but jazz in particular, right? Especially when it's just a bunch of people jamming together and they're having a jazz session or even blues, like just a jam session, right? You can really
Yeah.
tell people can feel the music when they're not sitting there reading the sheet music.
Mhm.
They're meshing together as a group and playing whatever comes up and harmonizing. Like, unless I
Mhm.
have played instruments. I
Mhm.
had no idea what a cello was when I was 8 and wanted to learn how to play music. And I had to stick with it. That thing was bigger than I was. And one time I came home and we had a small back porch and it fell down the bottom stairs and
Oh,
smashed a million pieces. To this day, you ask my mother, she thinks I threw it down the stairs. I really didn't. But I could read music. I did take some
wow.
music
Yeah.
lessons. As I shared, my brother is a musician, so
Right.
and my partner, so I really do love and appreciate music. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, you said that jazz it, it it don't mean a thing if it don't have that swing.
true.
So if you can noodle endlessly, and if
Mhm,
this is true in bluegrass as well, um, when you stick to the melody, it's like I'm keeping you engaged in the story, and it's an adventure. And
mhm,
this is true with all music. And I'm taken on a journey. And I do appreciate. I like all kinds of music. I can
mhm.
listen to John Cage, and I can listen to like static electricity with a bit of a rhythm sound, and
Can you?
they they have ri- it drives it, those things can drive my wife nuts. Um,
I know
I-
what I like. Like, I know within a few
sure,
notes. Like, for example, the band Muse is very heavy bass centered. And years ago, I heard them, and the first two notes, I was like, "Oh my god, I have to hear more of this band." And then they
right.
became more commercial. So I'll know. So, say if I heard a bluegrass song and the first couple of notes, it hit me, I would be drawn in. So I can't say even polka, like even though it's a big joke, and I found the name for you as we were talking. I'm going to say it for people.
Yeah.
Shared it with one of my clients recently, and she had a good laugh. So the name of it is called um, it's Heim Heim at damaged. It's
Wow.
and if you look it up, look up polka, Sweet Child of Mine for anybody listening, and she actually does have a good voice. You know what she floored me with? There was a one recently. She can actually play the guitar. I was
Wow.
floored. She dresses in the typical Oktoberfest, the tops down here, and we got the cleavage. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna say this. She has a mole right here when she's singing, and it just keeps reminding me of Austin Powers. That movie
Don't look
with
at the mole.
but she does have a good voice. I will give her that. And the fact that she
Yeah.
could fit on a guitar, that impressed me. So even
Yeah.
that I tolerate now. Before I was like, what is this? Or your wife probably same thing you were saying, driving your wife nuts.
Yeah, and she's very tolerant, and I do understand. I mean, there are things that I do want to be moved but there are
Mhm.
things that can be intellectually interesting. You say, oh, that's wow, okay, that's what interesting what that's happening there. But I think some of us are tuned into. I mean, we're listening to music and I hear a car horn, beep, eh, 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 and I kind of see the connection there.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're open,
Mhm.
maybe you can find it, and maybe, from that you can write a song. Uh,
I
but even,
agree.
even in, you listen to, I am a man of constant sorrow. I've seen troubles all my way. There's blues in that,
Absolutely.
I
Mhm. Did I freeze on you?
I was born and raised. Oh, I think I'm back though, right?
What's
Am I
that?
back?
I didn't know if it was
I
you
said,
or
am
it
I
was
back?
me. You're back. Hopefully, they'll let us know in the comments. But I was worried because
Cool.
sometimes if we're going to get snow, sometimes it'll be me, even though I swear to everybody, I've upped my internet to the highest degree it can go. It's fiber optic and it'll still do it to me if there's going to be bad weather. Mike froze,
Yeah.
Kevin froze. It
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. It could be my son, he's in there, he's 12, and gosh knows what he's doing in there. But,
Mhm.
I'm sure it's a video game, watching kitties or something. Um, oh,
Well,
so
my
I see it.
20 almost 26-year-old, he has
Wow.
severe autism. So he's very much like, without any disrespect, about a 5 to 7-year-old, but he gets quite animated and sometimes a little angry when he's playing video games. He always says before I go live, okay, mommy, I'm going to be really quiet when you're doing your show.
Yes, I can imagine for sure.
Mhm.
And, he does it too, Travis. By the
Mhm.
way, he's named after Merle Travis, who was
Oh,
a born in Muhlenberg County, Kentucky, and he plays a style of guitar that I have emulated, and it's a part of what I do. Not only, but I can pick and I can pluck, I can strum and I can rock. I can do it all.
I was impressed. I told you when I went to your Instagram.
Oh, thanks.
And you have a pinned post. You have a good voice, and
Thank you.
you're playing that. It really reminded me of what my brother plays. That's why I said to you, my brother's a musician.
Yeah, yeah. And you
We
could
are
hear,
almost out of time, Mike. We got about
yeah.
another 5 minutes to chat. You
Oh,
might have to.
awesome.
Well, I hope you're. I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm hoping you're going to come back with your new book.
I
But we
definitely
never
want
even
to come
got
back.
into the really
Ma-
meat potatoes. But you know what? What I do before every show, I always say, okay, Spirit, where are we going with this conversation? Because Spirit knows who's going to see it or who's going to watch the replay. And people still, I was glad that you read some passages from your book because I know people are going to want to know more about this book. So, what do you want to throw in the last 5 minutes? I could talk to you for
Well,
hours.
yeah, I know we both are talkers.
Mhm.
Maybe I could read just another little bitty
Please
snippet if
do.
I could find something,
We're not
find
going
something
anywhere
appropriate.
yet, Kevin. Kevin says, great show. Thank you, Kevin.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Um, so let me find something that would be that would.
You want to pull them all in. We didn't get to that beautiful cover. But you
Oh,
know what?
can I share that? Can I
Yes,
share it?
please do
Yeah,
because
let me
it's
see. Let me
sound.
see if I can. Here.
Yeah, if you you should be able to share it. Can you
Let's see. Share screen.
yeah, yeah, go
So
ahead.
let's see. Let me go here.
If I need to help
And
you with anything.
do
Thank
you see it? Do you see it now?
No.
Okay, let me
You
see
can
if
send
I.
it to me on Messenger quickly if you want,
Oh,
and I'll
sure.
pull it up. Hang on, give me one sec.
Sure. No
This is what
problem.
we'll do. We'll get Facebook open here. This is what I
I
usually do.
I think I have it though. I think because I see it now. Um,
Actually,
let
I
me
have your
see.
cover. What am I doing? I have your cover. Hang on.
Oh, you do?
I
Oh,
have your
cool.
cover on here because I remember I said I had to put the background up.
Yes, yes.
Give me one sec. I just got to go to Messenger,
It's so
and then
funny.
I didn't even think of that till just
Oh,
now.
here it is. I have it right here, and I finally figured it out.
Oh, there you did. Hang on. Okay, let's add it to the stage. There we
So
go.
this is the
That's
new
your new
book,
book. Yeah.
and let me get that. So let me hide it. So
And then
that's the
when we
new book, and this is kind of the new book is a it's a bit of it's a novel, first of all.
Mhm,
It's published by it's called Apprentice House Press,
mhm,
and gosh, it's associated with with a university. And I can't Loyola University. That's who it is.
mhm.
And so you'll see if folks out there into ufology have read Diana Pasulka. She's written some amazing books. I consider a mentor to me. And you have down below, I mentioned Jeff Kripal. So they
Mhm,
weighed in. But these are narratives. So what I've tried to do with these stories, they're kind of depictions of growing up in
mhm.
the gritty 70s of New York City. And there are the different ways that the uh, the phenomenon can penetrate our lives through near-death experiences, as I
Oh my
mentioned, through
gosh. You
psychedelic
have to come
experiences.
on. That's right up
Yeah.
my alley. Well, all this, I love doing this show. I love podcasting. I had 2 days to decide years ago, and I was going to say no because I had no clue what I was doing. And I heard Spirit say yes. We got you. And I did. And I don't know how I did a show Monday through Friday. Like I had no idea in a previous network.
Well, you're amazing at it.
Well, thank you.
You're generating and just kind of
I
making
love
this flow.
people and I love knowing their stories and, you know, how did you get to where you're at today? And that's
Yeah.
why, like, I love Gavin. Gavin is a dream. I think I said that in my last message to him. I wish you could train every person that does PR because you never have to ask Gavin for anything. He gives you everything you need. But I
Hmm.
never use his questions and I appreciate it because I
Yeah.
want to see where the conversation goes. And I really do trust what I call spirit, our guides and
Hmm.
those we're
Hmm.
not alone. And
Sure.
where are we going to go with this? Mhm.
Instinct and all of that intuition. And he is so lovely. You know, you talk to him and he's just so inspiring to talk to.
He is, and
Um,
smart and knowledgeable and such a
mhm,
sweet person. He really,
mhm,
really is. I was thinking about that. I'm going to have to bug him. I'm already booking, though, pretty well into April of next year already for, like I had
mm.
said earlier. So that's why I usually like to leave some spaces open. And Mike was patient, everybody, because we should have done this in like June or July.
Things that things happen. We can do something if you'd like in May, maybe, because the book will come out. For all we know, it will come out in April, and but people can pre-order it, so you can
I'll send
find
you my booking calendar because that's the one thing I set up. I don't know why I
cool.
didn't think of that, and it's worked out beautifully. And instead of 20 emails back and forth, are you available this date? No, sorry, that
Right,
date
right.
got filled up. You pick the
Just
date. I
book it,
get.
Dano.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely. This was it's a real fun ride and I like the fact that you don't want to meet before, so here we
No,
are.
I have no problem. Like
That's
Julie, I
awesome.
know that's in the audience,
Yeah.
and it's just I trust that even if I don't know the person, I know who Gavin is, and he's never steered me wrong in the years I've been doing this. I've not had one of his
Wow.
authors on here. I just recently told people I don't meet any of these people. And I said, he's never steered me wrong. So I just
Mm,
trust and it works out great. Usually always it has. Like I'm not saying I'm so great. I mean, I always feel like I have a really good conversation and I
mm.
really enjoy talking to people like yourself. So thank you for coming
Well,
on.
me too. Your gifts, I'm sure help you to have the vision to see those things and to be insightful. So, and thank you for letting me know that you were hearing, my dad in the
I have
conversation.
never done that. Like, I never push my show on other people to watch, but you can ask. We don't have our usual crew here tonight, so I'm not
Mm,
sure why. There must be something because we usually have a ton of people. So
mm,
Julie, you're so sweet. She said, "Great show tonight." And Lorilei is a gift. Thank you. So is Julie. She's helped me
yes.
out a lot. But like I said, people will watch on the replay. I know they will. They'll
Right.
leave comments. They'll have questions. So, how can people get a hold of you and where can they get your books? Because you have other books too.
So I would say, if you go to MikeFiorito.com, let me just pop it in here. If I give it to you, or I can.
Oh, no,
Um,
it's on the banner everywhere. It's
oh,
on right up
okay,
in the
great.
banner, how to get a hold. But just people listening. Say we got somebody over in Tibet that wants to buy your book.
Yeah. So if you go to MikeFiorito.com, it'll have links to all of the books with little blurb descriptions
Mhm.
and some review stuff. And you can get in touch with me. I'm happy to talk to anyone that has a question. And the books are, I think they're available everywhere. Maybe some, you poke around. As far as I know, the books are available everywhere. Um,
Awesome.
so, and I,
That's
if
great.
it, yeah. So I really look forward to any comments or thoughts that people have. But Laura, it was so great to meet you.
I know.
I feel very
I'm going to
appreciative.
send you my booking calendar after this.
Please.
So I want to have you back on. I do want to tell people don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying this conversation, coming up next are Philip and Julia Syracusa, friends of mine as well. They've been on my show before they came to the network, and they have the Horsefly Chronicles coming up next. They have great guests. You guys are going to love it. And I want you guys to stay tuned too, because Thursday, David and I are back with The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. We'll see where the conversation goes. We researched all week last week, and you guys wanted to talk about something completely different. So we'll see where we go, because we were thinking about shapeshifters and wendigos and all kinds of things like that. And you guys want to talk more spiritual. So we go wherever you guys want to go. So please join us Thursday nights here at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, I'm going to be back, same time, same space, with the Angel Rock, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Another guest. I forgot to check who's coming, but they'll be awesome, just like Mike. They're all, like I said, Gavin looks after us well. Also, if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on Facebook.com/Angel Rock. You want to book a reading? I do mentoring, I do and teaching. I have a course I am working on for those newly connecting, and as well, maybe if you want to learn new tricks of the trade with connecting with spirit and things like that in the new year. And the groups I have are Paranormal University, like I said, and the Angel Rock Tribe for more spiritual. Okay, everybody. Thanks again, Mike, so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks, Laura. Have a great one.
We'll see you on Thursday, everybody. Thanks for everybody being here. We'll talk to you soon. Much love.
Bye.